Vincent Onwane is the Director of Advocacy and Research at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Of course, the LCCI has hundreds, if not thousands, of members. It's the largest, one of the oldest in Nigeria, and of course, one of the oldest on the African continent. So they have these members who are directors and executives running businesses. So these are the ones who know where the shoe really pinches. Let's get him into the conversation. It's live here in Lagos, Channels Television Global Headquarters, and of course, Nigeria's political capital. We have a very decent and a magnificent headquarters, office there as well, which has our studios as well. If you haven't visited it, you need to visit that. That's an laboratory for Channels Television, where we currently have Professor Uche Waleke, who is the professor of finance at. Why are you smiling all over? Prof, tell us about that building.
I agree. Yes, I agree with you. Your place is beautiful.
Yeah, Abuja
Your studio is beautiful. I agree with you. Yes.
Magnificent. Really?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's part of the construction. If you look at the construction, we're starting with you, with apologies to Mr. One here. If you look at construction sector, and that was where you have what you call the cement, the painting, the whatever that makes up a building. So our construction sector was 4.14% growth in fourth quarter last year. Do you think we are making some progress with construction, whether it has to do with buildings, roads, bridges, drainages, toilets, whatever it is?
Yes, I think we are, and that's also showing up in the companies that are quoted on the stock exchange. Those in the construction sector, their share prices are doing well. But of course, again, we need to do more. We need to do more because these are the enablers. The construction sector is one of the critical sectors. I would like to see a situation in which future GDP growth rates are driven more by these critical sectors: construction, manufacturing, agriculture, ICT, and so on. Instead of oil. And that's why I'm not too happy that, as we speak, the 2018 budget, appropriation bill is yet to be passed. Because a delay in the implementation of what we have in that budget will, of course, affect the fortunes of the construction sector. Don't forget that 2018 budget has given the highest share of over 500 billion naira to power works and housing. So we should begin to see traction in that sector the moment the budget comes on stream. So the National Assembly is advised to quickly pass that budget so that we can begin to see implementation.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much, Waleke. Mr. Wale, thank you very much. It's good to have you. Good morning.
And thank you for your beautiful and magnificent office in Lagos.
Yes, we got a new one. Yeah, we haven't shown it. Exactly. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak to that one because it's still under wraps. But the one in Abuja is already unveiled. Yeah. But the one in Lagos, we're going to have a little bit of Lagos competing with Abuja when the time comes. But that's on that side. Seriously, the GDP out, and I'm sure your chamber, the LCCI, has a mountain of research. And your members speak to these numbers. They talk about the effects, they talk about capacity, whether it is electricity, they talk about the cost of doing business. Are you surprised the way our full year GDP reading came in at less than 1% for full year 2017? Yes, our head, or maybe our nose is just out of the water?
Well, we're not surprised. Not surprised because we've had expected a positive GDP growth for fourth quarter and for full year. So to that extent, we're not surprised. On the numbers, the number 1.9% for fourth quarter, not surprised, a little bit lower than what we had thought, but that is still a good news. So I think the first thing is to first of all congratulate the stakeholders, both the public, the ones in the private sector and the public sector, over this good news, because at least in an election year, and you are starting your first quarter by throwing out this type of good news, the confidence of investors, both local and foreign investors, is still sustained, especially for those of them that are beginning to take some measure, at least to look at how the political environment will likely play towards the end of the year. So largely it's a good news, both the GDP growth, the contribution to GDP by critical sector, the real sector, agric, oil sector, construction, and all. So all of them play out as good news. But like the Professor Uche said, that it is too early to go to town with our big drums. Because what we should be talking about now is sustainability and sustainable growth, and the growth that is actually labor-driven. You know, the opinion is that, thank God at this time, oil is contributing 8%, instead of growth by 8%, not 25%, as we are still in the third quarter. Because third quarter 2017, the real sector, non-oil, was still in recession. Why the exponential growth in the oil sector actually drove us out of GDP. But I can tell you for free that the normalcy or the situation we had in the oil sector played significant role in the position we find ourselves right now.
Even with the non-oil sector?
Yes.
So, do you think with the fourth quarter numbers, we are beginning to see this ship moving and turning from oil to non-oil, even though it's not so visible in terms of whether we're turning in terms of diversification?
Well, what has happened, yes and no. In the fourth quarter, you find a situation where the dollar is not as scarce as it used to be. Exchange rate is also predictable, and people that investors that needed FX are able to get this FX. You know, and the reason for this is that oil price was steady at 60, 70, early $70 per barrel, and production was also steady at between 1.9 to 2.05 million barrels per day. And some of these variables are not a making of ourselves, especially the global oil price. So the meaning of that is that for any reason, God forbid, we still find ourselves at 40, 30 as as it happened in 2016, that is still going to be issue. Because you need this dollar to import raw materials. You need this dollar to even the anchor borrowers, the intervention of government. It is money. And for oil sector that contributes between 8% to 10% of GDP, that is it contributes about 90% of revenue, especially foreign earnings, is something we begin to look at. Yes, the economy is diversified, as it were, but revenue sources is not diversified. And you need oil to diversify. You need oil to go out of oil.